there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, GM Potter here, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We are revisiting one of my favorite books from when I was in 7th grade. I love this book. I read it many times between 7th grade and when I was a sophomore in college, which was many years ago now, and that is 2001 A Space Odyssey. So I love this book. As when I was younger, I watched the movie. I didn't really like the movie. I thought it was a little boring. But I read the book and I absolutely fell in love with it. My dad had a copy of it. This is my copy. I got it from a used bookstore because it keeps falling out of print. And I loved this book and I wanted to reread it and see if it holds up. So this book came out in 1968. So it came out the year before we landed on the moon. Like, we were close, the space race was already on, the US and the Russians were already in space, and now it was just a rush to see who could get to the moon first when this book came out. I was obsessed with this book. I like stars. Stars are one of my favorite shapes. My favorite shape is actually the scalene triangle, where none of the sides have the same length, partly because I just like saying scalene, but my second favorite shape is the star. And I still call things that have like a star motif Arthur C. Clarke blah. Like, I had a pair of pants that had like bleaching in a star pattern, and I called them my Arthur C. Clarke pants. I have a tank top that's blue with silver stars on it, kind of a 4th of July looking thing it's supposed to be, but I wear it all year because this is Texas and it gets hot. And I call it my Arthur C. Clarke shirt, and I still say, oh my god, it's full of stars. Because that line just stuck out to me, more so in the book than in the movie. But yeah, let's get into it. So this book gets into a lot more detail than the movie. Isn't that always the case, though? We start out with Australopithecus africanus, early man in what would one day become Africa, is how the book phrases it, and their journey of transforming into what we think of as Australopithecus, with their tool using and all of that. And this book, in the book, it's because of the monolith that's crystal clear, and it performs thought experiments on them, and like has little targets and instructs them to throw little rocks at the target, and eventually Moonwatcher, who's our main early man, kills the leader of a rival tribe, and that's really set off as a major theme and what's going to happen with this. So, and then we get into the current time of the book, which is still a long time ago because it's 2001. We get into that, and they've unearthed another monolith, this time on the moon, and there's a media blackout, and it's thought to be from a higher power because its ratio for its size is 149, 1 squared 2 plus 2, 1 squared 2 squared 3 squared, and so it's perfect. It's got to be the work of a higher thinking society, and it takes them on what everyone remembers from the movie, which is the HAL computer system in the spaceship and all of that. But that's only the second half of the book. Like, there's a lot of book before we even get there. And the HAL computer system, it goes into more detail about that. It humanizes the AI system in a way that the movie just doesn't do. The movie, oh, it's a bad guy because it's a movie and you need a bad guy. And the book, it makes you feel for Hal towards the end, or at least I did. And it's really interesting. I don't want to spoil this. Like, I know a lot of younger people haven't seen 2001 Space Odyssey, and more people haven't read the book, which is kind of a shame because it's a really good book. I know a lot of reviewers of this have said, oh no, it's not a good book, it's a good movie, and you only like the book because you like the movie. Well, I didn't like the movie, I like the book. Like, the movie was boring. The book has has got some humor to it. It's got some dark themes. It's really interesting. Speaking of themes, we've got the perils of technology, that the monoliths are essentially different, a more advanced style of technology, right? It's basically a supercomputer that can probe into people's minds and stuff, and and the HAL 9000 computer system as well. Past a certain point, you can't control your creations. Is kind of a major theme of the book. Is the perils of technology. If we get beyond something, if we get into super realistic AI, can we control it? How do we keep it from going off the rails? And that's really interesting, and I feel like that part holds up for today, where we've got this hyper realism and this super advanced AI computing systems that, like, I know the computers and the robots are going to rise up one day, and Skynet and all the rest of this, but what if it does? Like, that's a very interesting thing. And it's got the perils of nuclear war, which is a little outdated now, because the Cold War is over. It's been over almost my whole life. I was born in 88. The wall came down in 89. But in this book, the Cold War is still on, and it's not just a Cold War, it's a hot and cold war. And it's that whole, like, it's also set up as almost a theater once you get to the space station, because it's this way to the US side, this way to the Soviet side. But once you get through those checkpoints, then everybody commingles again. So it's almost like the Cold War is still raging on Earth, but once you get into space, it's not. It's more theater, and it's more theatrics and put on for the sake of appearances, kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting. And then space exploration, of course, is a major theme of the book, and the idea that through space travel we can glimpse what we can maybe one day become, and evolution is in the same thread, is a major theme. And then yeah, so does this book hold up? I think it does. Like, it's not my favorite book still. I read it and I enjoyed it, and it gave my brain a lot to chew on. There are parts of it that are outdated because it did come out in '68. It came out a long time ago. But the major themes of it, if you take it as with a grain of salt and as something that came out in '68 and not something that came out recently, I think it does hold up. I think it holds up rather well for a piece of fiction and a piece of speculative fiction. I think it holds up rather well. So, should you read this? Did it hold up? Yes to both questions. Have you read any Arthur C. Clarke? Did you read 2011? My dyslexic butt, when I tried to buy 2001, I accidentally bought 2011, and I was not impressed with that one. Not nearly as much. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!